Hey everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're in my corner and I have a very special guest in the corner. Would you like to unveil your not-so-secret identity?
Yes. Oh, you want it now?
Preferably. I mean,
Sure.
we could always wait for it, but...
My name is Ian James Corlett, and I am a voice actor, probably most well-known for being the original English voice of Goku in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, Mega Man, and most recently I am featured in a new Disney animated series called Vampirina, playing Chef Remy Bones, a French skeleton chef, amongst many other things.
Cute.
Look me up.
That show is super cute.
It is lovely, and the music is so good.
Yeah, it totally is. My brother has 3 little girls, and his 2 younger ones watch that show, so that's how I'm introduced into it.
Cool.
But for the fans out there, since this is your first time on 91.8 The Fan, we do have to ask that very standard question, just to get it out of the way and get over it. So, what sparked your interest into acting? Whether it was when you were in diapers or when you were in high school, what started it?
I would say it's probably in school, in high school, even elementary school. I was in, whatever shows that there was. If you want to go way back, my initial interest was in puppeteering. I really loved puppets. I loved the Muppets. So, being a puppeteer, you do the voices for the puppets. And then from that, I kind of moved into ventriloquism, so more kind of performing stuff. And then fast forward a few years, and I started making films, and a lot of those were animated films. Of course, this was like in the dinosaur ages when, putting sound and audio on a film was like a really big deal. So I was like a techno nerd for that era, and I would do the voices for my little animated stuff. And then eventually I spun that into doing radio commercials in Vancouver, which was a really big business in the late 70s, early 80s. I wasn't doing it in the late 70s, but the industry was really big. And then in the mid-80s, the animation work started to arrive in Vancouver, and the rest is history.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I know that a lot of animation and video game work has kind of migrated more to the Los Angeles area, and if you're doing specifically anime, you want to be in Texas.
Yeah.
So did you ever think about, making the big move, or if you have made the big move, because we didn't look at any addresses, right, when we did research.
Oh, okay. No, I'm happy to tell you that. So, yeah, I spent the bulk of my career in Vancouver, but now I am mostly based in Los Angeles. I work out of both places. But LA is, I always liken it to a basketball player. If you are a professional basketball player, you can ply your craft and play the game in a lot of different places. You can make a wonderful living playing in Europe and Germany or Russia or Italy. But where you really want to be is in the NBA on a team that's really doing it in a big city. And that's how I sort of view the entertainment business. The voice business, the big stuff happens in Los Angeles. And I was in a point in my career and my family life where my kids were old enough to kind of start looking after themselves, and we decided, hey, let's try this. So I am mostly in Los Angeles now and loving it.
I mean, you got great weather.
Yes.
I'm just a state over in Nevada, so we don't have as great of weather because in the summer it gets 125, but that's okay. But one thing that you kind of mentioned is you said, how difficult it was, quite a few years back to put audio into a film. And nowadays, people have home studios, they have tools like Pro Tools.
You have an iPhone, for goodness sakes. You could do what feature films used to do with only your iPhone. It's remarkable.
Is there, so I like to ask this question because I find the different answers kind of interesting, but if there is one thing that you use in your arsenal today that you could have used in the 80s or the 70s, what would it be?
Oh, wow. Good question. A really good home studio. I always had some form of recording studio, but what you have now in basically in your hands, man, I would have loved to have had in the old days. But the industry wouldn't have lended itself to that so much because, you couldn't record remotely up until sometime in the 80s, sort of late 80s with ISDN and various ways to connect studios digitally. So it's kind of like, I guess, my dream, sure, would be to have a great home studio, but what would I really be doing in it?
That's a good point. And I recently heard with ISDN that I think in the UK in 2020, it's technically going to be gone.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's going to happen here in the U.S. I know that major players still use it, so.
It's essentially gone here. Like, if you try to get a new ISDN line, good luck. Like, the mention or the unsaid inference is it's done. Like, we're going to keep servicing the customers who currently have it, but please don't look for a new line. And it's time, that it doesn't really matter. I mean, there's a lot of ways to connect now over the web, and it's a whole new world. And a lot of stuff is done that way, but still, the huge majority of work that I do is going into a studio. It's only when, circumstances just don't allow that I record things remotely. And the last time I had kind of an emergency thing, we were at a convention in Baltimore, and I traveled to in the car ride from Baltimore to Washington. I got this panicked email from my agent saying, "Oh, we got to do this commercial." And I go, "Well, I'll be in the hotel in half an hour." So we hooked up. I connected via Source Connect, if you're familiar with that. Mm-hmm. And in the closet in the hotel with a pillow fort, off we did 18 commercial revisions. So it's a bold new world, and I love it. Every time we do something like that, I sit back for just a second and go, wow, what did we just accomplish? That was so cool.
It is. It's. I mean, the only bad part is, when you're super sweaty among that pillow fort.
Yes.
But I imagine for dubbed material, you have to go in because you're seeing it on screen, and you have more of a time cue, like the 3 beats
Always.
and things like that. Yeah. So I think we'll really hit kind of peak of geekdom for a lot of fans once you guys can do that in your own home.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. I have not been doing a whole lot of dumbing, Freudian slip, dubbing in the last little while. I just got, it was a whole bunch of reasons that I kind of stepped away from it, mostly because it was a ton of work. And in the old days, when we were doing it in Vancouver, the union contracts were all over the place, and it just didn't make sense to be doing it for a whole day for what we ended up with at the end of the day as far as a paycheck. So I'm actually really good. I'm going to sound like Donald Trump complimenting myself here, but I'm actually really good at dubbing, and I just wish it paid better. So I just haven't really done it much.
No,
lately.
I mean, I agree with you. I've only really had experience in commercial and narration and everything, and I have friends and peers who work in dubbing, and they're like, "Oh, you want to stay in that anyway? It pays better."
Yeah. Yep. It does.
And, I mean, a lot of dubbing that's done specifically for anime, like a lot of the fans out there enjoy, they don't actually follow a union just due to where they are dubbed. For example, a lot of dubs in Texas.
Exactly. That was the reason they moved there. And you know the story of, like, why it's happening in Texas? Like, you know the history of that?
I know bits and pieces of it. Obviously, I wasn't there, so.
Well, it all came out of Vancouver. Back in the day, this is a kind of a insider story. The guys from Funimation came to Vancouver because we were already dubbing things, animated series out of Paris and France and various other countries. And we had kind of a reputation for it. And actually, my partner and I were reversioning and writing the stuff as well as running the record sessions. So these two guys from Texas show up one day, and I forgot his last name. Barry is his first name. And Gen Fukunawa, the two head dudes from this little company no one had heard about called Funimation. They said, we got this project we want to do. Gen's uncle owns it or something. I forget what the family connection was, but there was a family connection. And we said, sure, yeah, we do that all the time. So that is the origin story of the English dub of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. So we started doing that work, and it worked for quite a while until I stopped doing it for reasons I just mentioned. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, like lots of businesses, they just look for, okay, can we, we've been doing it this way for a long time. It's expensive. We got to go up to Vancouver. I mean, they didn't come all the time, but they were, they were good dudes. But they're business guys, so they looked for ways to keep their costs down. And eventually, what they did was, I forget the term now. I think it's right to work state.
Yeah, it's a right to work state. Yeah.
So, they can move the work there. And the challenge was getting actors. So I assume that they, went to wherever you would find actors in I'm not sure. Are they out of Dallas or?
I think it's Fort Wayne, isn't it?
Isn't it? I don't know. Fort Wayne. I have no idea. But anyway, they got actors from wherever they get actors in Texas, and off they went. And I'm assuming it was all non-union because I'm making that assumption. That's why it would be a cost saving. So that's the story of how it came to be. They were from Texas, came to Vancouver, learned how to do it, got the shows up and running, and they got more and more popular. And then eventually transitioned to moving to Texas.
It almost seems like, from my personal opinion, I can't say professional because I don't want to get burned by saying it, but it seems like they're actually moving more and more things to California. Sony recently bought the Funimation company, and that'll be interesting to see what happens because for a lot of the fans, and I've spoken about this pretty passionately, I know that there was recently a video game strike that just ended.
Yes.
So congratulations for you guys at least getting some of your terms. I know it wasn't everything you guys wanted, but at least it was some of it.
Yeah, it was good news. No one likes a strike, but no one likes getting taken advantage of either. So, what's the old expression? A good deal is when both sides aren't happy.
That's not wrong. But I'm happy that it feels like more people are becoming educated on it. Not those necessarily in the industry, because what we saw from our side was a lot of people going, well, that's not fair because video game developers don't have a union, or video game developers don't get bonuses. But the thing is, they used to have bonuses in the 80s and the 90s.
Sure.
And I think it's a little bit of a shame to hear fans, being like, oh, well, this is selfish, and not going like, why aren't we asking more? Why don't developers have unions? Or why aren't they protected from, working 70 hours a week and then getting fired? Their whole department getting fired the next day.
Yep. No, I totally agree. And every guild or every group of workers needs to establish those rules or those groups themselves. Like, if we didn't have a performing arts actors union, we wouldn't be able to negotiate these things. The thing is, when video games were first starting, it was the Wild West. It was like the internet. No one knew what are we doing? What's going on? Oh, okay. Well, we'll throw it under this contract, and it was some sort of weird version of a performer's contract. But no one ever dreamt that the video game business would be essentially larger than Hollywood. I mean, the money that these things generate, and a lot of it has to do with the voices. I mean, it's not Frogger anymore. These are big productions that depend on performances. So I think developers should have a guild. Video game writers should have a guild, but it's cultural, and it's a tough thing to sell or to organize. But throughout history, we've had animators that back in the 40s or 30s or 40s, they had to form a guild or an agreement, and that was one of the things that Walt Disney really fought against. And I see both sides of it, because Walt felt, man, I'm going off on a tangent here, but Walt felt that, hey, you guys are family, and some of the family didn't feel like they were being treated like family, and then they said, we're going to start a union, or we want Disney to be unionized, because I guess there was a union. So it's growing pains. I mean, these things happen, and I'm just thankful that, the acting community got together a million years ago and formed a Screen Actors Guild, so that you're not taken advantage of, because, my Lord, artists in general are so easily and so regularly taken advantage of, because for artists, do this for free, won't you? Would you do this for free? We're just
great exposure.
Great exposure, I know, and we all fall for it too. Sometimes it's worth it, but as a general rule, just don't. No one wants to get taken advantage of.
No, I agree with you 100%. And as consumers, for any of the fans out there, you can vote with your money, with your wallet. There was recently a video game series that came out and replaced all of the voice actors due to the fact the strike was going on, and I won't be playing the sequel.
Yeah, good for you. And that is exactly it.
So now to move on to something, I guess, a little bit brighter, because once again, if anyone wants any information on the voice actor strike and the end of it, we'll provide links in our live chat, so make sure to check that out. But, let's talk about some of the stuff that you're doing now. What are projects that you have coming up or that you're currently on that you'd like to promote?
Well, speaking of games, which was under a union contract, even though we did it during strike times, because not every video game producer was hit by the strike. They had different contracts that they worked under. Anyway, I am currently in a little game called Marvel vs. Capcom, which I think is pretty darn popular. And
I'm just thinking just a smidge, yeah.
And I am playing a shrieking banshee of a character called Firebrand. And I challenge fans to recognize that it's me. It's insane. But so that's really cool. Love doing that project because it was so high profile. As I mentioned in the intro, I am Chef Remy Bones in Vampirina. That was a really big deal for me because I've done sort of peripheral work for Disney, but never been a key character in a Disney series. So that's a milestone for me. And those are the two biggest, most current things that I'm working on. I mean, I got lots of guest roles on things like The Loud House and what's it called? The something Blaze and the Micro Machines. I do a bunch of voices, sort of guest characters in that, and lots of other little shows. But those are the biggies.
Fantastic. And for the fans that want to keep up to date with what you're doing, where can they stalk you online in a nice way?
They can stalk me in any way they feel like via Instagram. I also am on Twitter, but mostly I just kind of repost from Instagram to Twitter. My Facebook is private because it's just I've set it up as a million years ago as a place for friends and family. So don't be disappointed. I get friend requests constantly, but I don't respond to them because it's just kind of private. So anyway, I'm saying that, and I'm just basically at Ian James Corlett, IanJamesCorlett on Instagram, and on Twitter. I have to look it up because I think there's something else to it. Hold on.
I'm pretty sure it's
coming.
007.
Yes, I knew there was a 007 in it, but I can't remember if there's a dash. No, there's no dash. So it's just Ian James 007. And you can figure out what the reason for that is.
I hope our fans can.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if they can't.
Yes.
Well, for the fans out there, is there any place they can meet you in person, any conventions that you're doing this year into next, or should we just stay tuned for that?
Stay tuned and do me a favor. If you like my work, if you're a Goku fan or a Mega Man fan or a Dinosaur Train fan or a Being Ian fan or a Vampirina fan or whatever, talk to your local convention and get them to get in touch with my convention agent, Sherry Fowler. She's one of the biggies, and there was years. Here's what happened. There was years and years and years that I just didn't do any conventions at all. I had little kids and just wasn't terribly interested. But now, whole new ball game. I love to meet the fans, and if you want me to appear at a convention, just talk to Sherry, talk to the convention, and tell them, hey, that the original voice of Goku is available.
Fantastic. You heard it here first. Since we're nearing the end of this interview, is there anything else you want to tell the fans? Any words of wisdom, dating advice, predictions for the end of the world?
Oh, no, and no. But every day, try to be nice to someone. Do something for someone that doesn't expect it. And peace, love, and understanding, and listen to good music.
See, that sounds like words of wisdom to me, but, But for any of the fans out there that missed any of this interview, don't sweat. You can find it on the website in the next few days, so keep your eyes peeled to 918thefan.com and your ears tuned to 91.8 The Fan, where we play everything you want and nothing you don't.